Okay, so I speak in English. Könntest du vielleicht für Kishore übersetzen? Vielen Dank. English is good? Super. Okay, nice. So today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the 4th canto, which is called The Creation of the Fourth Order, chapter 7, entitled The Sacrifice Performed by Daksha, and verse 55. Very good. Okay, so we will just go through the words to help with our pronunciation. Maitreya, Maitreya. Uvacha, said. Evam, thus. Bhagavata, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adishtaha, having been instructed. Prajapati, Patihi, the head of all the Prajapatis. Harim, Hari, Ajitva, after worshipping. Kratuna, with the sacrificial ceremonies. Svena, his own. Devan, the demigods. Ubayataha, Bayataha, separately. Ayajat, worshipped. Okay, so line by line. Maitreya uvacha, evam bhagavata dishtaha, evam bhagavata dishtaham, prajapati pati harim, prajapati pati harim, achitva kratuna svena, achitva kratuna svena, devanupayato yajat. Maitreya uvacha, evam bhagavata dishtaha, evam bhagavata dishtaham, prajapati pati harim, prajapati achitva kratuna svena, achitva kratuna sveha, devanupyato yajat. Please, Prabhus. Maitreya uvacha, dishtaha, tapati, Evam bhagavata disha, Maitreya uvacha, Dujayat. Maitreya uvacha, evam bhagavata dishtaha, prajapati pati harim, achitva kratuna svena, devanupayato yajat. Maitreya uvacha, evam bhagavata dishtaha, Prajapati Pati Harim Achitva Kratuna Svena Devanupayato Yajat Maitreya Uvacha Ivam Bhagavata Tishtaha Prajapati Pati Harim Achitva Kratuna Svena Devanupyato Yajat. Nice. Anyone else want to? Okay. It's very nice that we try to repeat the verse. Thank you for trying, everybody. So, today I shall go straight into translation because we already did word by word. Okay, translation by Srila Prabhupada. The sage Maitreya said, Fast Daksha, the head of all Prajapatis, having been nicely instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, worshipped Lord Vishnu. After worshipping him by performing the prescribed sacrificial ceremonies, Daksha separately worshipped Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Vishnu should be offered everything, and his prasad should be distributed to all the demigods. This practice is still followed in the temples of Jagannath at Puri. There are many temples of demigods around the main temple of Jagannath, and the prasad which is offered first to Jagannath is distributed to all the demigods. The deity of Bagalin is worshipped with the prasad of Vishnu, and also in the famous Lord Shiva temple of Bhuvaneshwara, the prasad of Lord Vishnu or Lord Jagannath is offered to the deity of Lord Shiva. This is the Vaishnava principle. The Vaishnava does not deride even ordinary living entities, including the small ant. Everything is offered proper respect according to his position. The offering, however, is in relation to the center, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna or Vishnu. The devotee who is highly elevated sees the relationship to Krishna in everything. He does not see anything as being independent of Krishna. That is his vision of oneness. Again, the translation. The sage Maitreya said, Fast Daksha, the head of all Prajapatis, having been nicely instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, worshipped Lord Vishnu. After worshipping him by performing the prescribed sacrificial ceremonies, Daksha separately worshipped Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Very nice. Om Agnyata Marandyascha Jagam Salakaya Chakshurmanitam Yana Tasmai Shugurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namano Vistam Shtapitam Yana Bhutale Swayam Jagavayam Tatati Swapadandikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivaswati Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So first of all, thank you for all of you for coming today. I ask for your blessings that I can say something that will help you in your spiritual lives today. This verse is nice because a lot in this chapter talks about the relationship between Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, but this moves slightly away when it talks about that Lord Vishnu should be offered everything and then it should be distributed to the demigods. So it's an interesting concept in life. Lord Vishnu should be offered everything. It's also in the Nectar of Devotion as one of the principles or angas of our devotional life, that we should offer everything to the Lord. Normally we understand that as food stuff, so like we should offer just food. But what about the other stuff? Huh? What happens when you go out and buy some new shoes? What is it when you go out and buy and you beat back. Huh? This is like, what happens then? Is it just for us, or is it also for the Lord? It's also interesting that this verse later on talks about the Vaishnava principle, that the Vaishnava does not deride. So this word means one does not ridicule or have any contempt for even ordinary living entities like the small ant. Everything is offered in respect to the position. And everything is offered to the fact that the center is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's an interesting principle to see. Krishna in the temple is somehow more or less easy. To see Krishna when we are maybe making a garland is also okay. Huh? Maybe when we're doing the laundry for the Lord, when we are playing Madanga, when we are singing Kirtan. But what goes on in the other time, I wondered today? Because here it says that, how do we see the Krishna in relation to everything? In the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in the 7th canto, I found a nice quote. It says, if whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever we think, and whatever we plan is for the advancement of the Krishna conscious movement, this is oneness. So it's a very beautiful idea that all of our activities are slowly brought towards the Lord. Well, actually, that's not very slow. That's like in one go. Huh? Let's bring it all. Let's give it all over to Krishna. And most of us are in the temple because we wanted to practice this idea of living with Krishna in the center, with this idea that God, that everything is centered around the Lord. Here we can see it more clearly, right? That Nrsimhadev is in the temple, in the center. All our worship is around him. Pujari helpers here, ones who do the laundry, one who makes garland. Mataji here is making some wicks for the Lord. So most of us are doing it. You're making a garland? Yeah. Narayani there is making a garland already. So many of these activities, it's very common. But what about the majority of the people? Actually, I would even say the majority of devotees live outside of the temple. How is it possible then to live a life where the Lord is kept in the center? I think some parts of it is because we also here come regularly to temple, like this family. I think they come every day. They're a wonderful example. They come every day to get a little bit of Krishna, to infuse oneself with a little bit of Krishna consciousness every day. So what happens to others? Many of us also in ashram, I've seen, then at one point go to live outside, so to say, outside of the temple. Sometimes devotees have their own deities, but mostly they have to work and do other things to be able to live their life in connection to the Lord. On this point, and it's interesting also for all of us who are also here, is this deeper principle of understanding that it is not just our external activity which brings us in connection with the Lord. What's going on in the inside? I've heard sometimes, but Mataji, it's Kali Yuga. It's okay what's going on in my mind. I'm not punished for it. That's not a problem. That is true. We have this element. But the point is, what is happening in those moments with the mind? What are those moments where instead of thinking of the Lord, we are thinking of all the problems in the world? As I've looked over the Mataji ashram for a little while, some of you ladies speak to me or have spoken to me before, and often it may not be just a problem with another devotee, but often it is problems with the workings of the mind. What's going on with the mind in our daily life? Where is that in relationship to our relationship to Krishna? Is it that when we do our service, we think of Krishna, or are we already on the next step? Already thinking, okay, when's prasadam? Or are we thinking, I have to do this, or this is happening? What's going on in this moment? In many purports you will find this idea of oneness is explained more, because it's not that we should confuse ourselves with the Mayavadi philosophy that we are one with God. This is explained often by Srila Prabhupada. This idea of oneness is this idea of oneness of vision with the Lord. Early in the third canto in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Prabhupada gives us this example of Arjuna, that after he heard the Bhagavad Gita recited by, of course, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's dovetailed his mind with Krishna's desire. And Prabhupada called this oneness. So we're not speaking of losing our individuality. We're not speaking of losing our personality. Hare Krishna. We're speaking of understanding what it means to align our thoughts and desires with Krishna's thoughts. Nice, very lively in the temple room today. So I was thinking I do an activity, but I was like, I don't want everybody to run away because Gopi Gita starts to get her chalkboard out. Ramananda makes fun like school teacher in the room. But if just a moment before we see the Lord. Okay, so we know what we do, most of us, for the Lord. But just think for a moment, Jai Nishingadev, blessed by Lord Nishingadev, I hope this is okay to ask. Think of a moment, what do you do when you're not serving the Lord? When you're not chanting? What's going on? Narayani is at least laughing at me, yeah? So what's going on? Huh? Just think for a moment. It's okay. I think one part in our movement, sometimes we've heard that sometimes we hear so many wonderful examples and readings, and we want to be a pure devotee at the beginning. And we've seen many devotees get burnt out because they've just pushed themselves too much, almost over the level. So let's not talk about over the level. What's happening in between? Huh? We call it in psychology the shadow parts, but we don't need to go so much. It doesn't mean that it has to be something so bad. In the outside world, and we've seen it also here, when it gets too much or when material life is too much, then people do the usual diversion. Huh? They go and have a drink. Huh? They have a smoke. They, maybe the next level, they take some drugs. Next level, inject themselves. I'm from London. We've seen it all. Yeah, so it's like a whole level of understanding of what goes on. And wondering, when one takes a spiritual practice, is interesting. If you go to a temple where Srila Prabhupada installed the deity in London, Sri Sri Radha Landaneshwara. Yeah, so beautiful small temple. One side you have a temple, one side you have some random restaurant, on the other side you have a nightclub for the gay community. So it's like in one street, right next door to each other. So you've walked there, you're like, okay, I'm ready to be a devotee. And then before you even come to the temple, you're exposed to everything in front of you. Yeah? It's like a little bewildering for the mind if you're a little sensitive or you're a little open, you see, whoa, okay. And some of us then run quicker to the temple because we're like, whoa, we need this. But sometimes one goes, hey, well, what's happening here? Looks a little interesting. They are sort of looking at us, we're looking at them. If you're a Sankirtan devotee, it's good, you'll take the opportunity to maybe give a book. But other time, sometimes the question goes up, it's like, okay, what are we doing and what are they doing? What's happening here? What is the difference? So one can say the mind gets diverted. In most of us here, we have committed to more or less the 4 principles and to chanting 16 rounds every day. So we get closer to level of chanting. So we're walking a little bit more away. However, sometimes the mind gives us some trouble. Narayani, you were smiling at me when I asked this question. What do you do when the mind, or when you're not in Krishna consciousness? What sort of things can one do? Hang on, do we have another microphone, or... Sorry, Thakur. Oh, should I write things on the board? Or should I... Do you want me to be more... It always gets people thinking, that's what it is. Huh? What do you think, husband? Should I write things on the board? No? No, okay. Do it. No, I don't know if I want to write on the board today. Okay, just to keep you all thinking. Da, da, da. Here goes Gopi Gita. You see, the last person who wrote on the board was Gopi Gita. Which is quite something I gave class quite a while ago. So often we speak about what we can do for the Lord. So what I'm asking now is, what are our distractions? What else is not in Krishna? Let's have an activity which one can possibly say is in between, like some physical activity. We might need to do some jogging or running or some other thing, yeah? Some exercise. Let's call it exercise. Nice. Narayani, you were going to say something.
About what you say, or
yes.
What do we do when
what
we
do
are
we
not
do?
in service? Yeah. I try to maintain a Krishna conscious state, but to don't fall in Maya. But
how? What do you mean you fall in Maya? Do you mean the mind?
Yes.
The mind. What happens? The mind gets sidetracked, or the mind?
Yes, because even maybe I'm looking pictures of deities of other temples on Instagram, but suddenly I just scrolling something else and I don't realize, and then I realize I'm just wasting time instead of watching pictures of the deities taking darshan.
Surfing the do we still call it surfing the internet? Is it still, am I a little old, or is it surfing? So we're surfing, huh? So we are literally on our board. Huh? We're like, I just want to see, like Narayani, just take darshan, huh? Just want to take darshan of what's going on. I'm just checking out, you know what kirtan is going on in Instagram. Yeah? That's how it begins. Don't worry, we've all done it, I'm sure. It's very brave that you say. So we look, da-da-da. There we're looking, and then some random things goes. Oh wow. Oh, for me, it comes up what you see. So I'm like, oh, that's an interesting dance move. Oh, that's nice. Or some other, da-da. Oh, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Oh my God, where did the time go? It's like this. So the time sort of flows out. The sort of, one can say one is trying to relax, but also some sort of activity. So relax. Most of us surf the internet. Oh, anyone here who doesn't surf the internet? Doesn't somehow brush through? No? Maybe Param Simha, I imagine he doesn't surf the internet. YouTube, yeah. Oh, also. Oh, yes. No, I'm just saying, it's all of us. What is the point if we cannot be truthful in spiritual life? So what else takes us off Krishna? What else could it be? There's one thing I know, we're sleeping. We all need to sleep. Huh? Sleeping. Such an activity, some boring activity. We all need it. Anyone ever try to stay up the whole night? Yeah? 24-hour kirtan. Keep going. But yeah, the mind starts to sleep before the body falls asleep. The other thing also with the mind is that just it's sometimes we get so stuck in the troubles. Something is just whirling around, I hear. I think it's also maybe for Prabhus, but definitely for us ladies. We can sit there and we might have some duty to do, but if we are troubled, it's just like a loop. It's a strange thing that also takes a lot of time away from our lives. Anyone else have something that takes them away? Why are you laughing? Something else on this or something you read?
I just was thinking it takes a lot of time away that girls are thinking.
Yeah, but boys also think too sometimes. Sometimes boys, you can also see when they look a little cross-eyed that some thought is also running through and they're not sure.
It doesn't take the life away.
But takes the time away.
No, it's part of the life.
But you should be on the microphone. Can I say something? Okay, Theodore. What comes?
I think at least for me, I'm not sure if it's for all men, but for me the loop is not thinking, but it's not thinking. Like it's paralyzed.
It's not thinking.
It's a paralyzed
Switch.
thing. You don't think. It's just a standby mode. Or like your computer overheated and it freezes and you're pressing a button and it doesn't work. You know, like
This is like Matajis versus Prabhus. Or it's like the Matajis are and the boys are just on freeze modus. So sleep modus. But you're like awake, eyes are open.
yeah, it's just like yeah.
Julian, can you relate to being on a standby modus sometimes? Not really, huh?
You know, like the screensaver on the computer does like ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding. Screen run. Standby modus. In sort of esoteric circles, it's like fight or flight modus, but there's also one between which is called freeze, which apparently a lot of us fall into. We're not sure, so we're just this. Not for you, Julian. What happens to you when you are not in... no, okay, sorry, it's shy. So yeah, so one of these sort of standby modus. Thank you for these. But here in this purport, it speaks to us about having a vision of, I tell you exactly, seeing everything in relationship to Krishna. Yeah, everything in relationship to Krishna. So that's why I gave these difficult examples. How can we see these in relationship to Krishna? Exercise. You don't need to exercise. Sometimes people come and they're like, I heard you do yoga. When's the yoga class? And we're like, you were there. Were you not there? At like 5 o'clock, bhakti yoga. That's what we do, bhakti yoga. What do you mean? They're like, no, yoga. Like when, and we're like, well, I mean, of course, many devotees practice yoga. We have our wonderful Advaita Sima also does pranayama, Srimandri, known for the yoga. So the exercise, what does the exercise help us with? Can we think of as health? Yeah, and why do we need to be healthy, Narayani? What's that in relationship to Krishna?
Because if we have some pain when we are doing service or we are feeling tired, our muscles are not like good enough.
Oh, sorry, just for the online viewers, sometimes you'll see quite a few comments come up after, and like, we didn't hear the other person.
So if we don't have like the minimum health, like of our physical body, and then we are feeling some pain or we are not feeling like good, I think when we are doing service, our mind can be distracted because of these health problems.
Yes, if we look into health, Prabhupada also gave this point that we have to take care of the health. Also, it's a basic thing also before practicing in spiritual life. I was given this example, why take care of the body? Because the body houses the soul. And where is Krishna? There's part and parcel of Krishna within. So you're taking care, just as one takes care of a car. If you want to be able to drive it, you can't just leave your car, leave the windows open, doors open, or whatever, just park it in the middle of the road. Maybe someone smashes into it. You have to take care of the body, and for this reason, exercise is very important, that we find moderation in our spiritual lives. As you'll see, more and more coming in, that we have some sort of balance with our sadhana. But the main spiritual reason is that the body, possibly, the body is housing the soul. Sleep. Let's go to sleeping. Sleeping also. It's the same sort of principle. If we devotees are known to sleep too little. I had to give a talk once. I don't know why I was asked to give this talk, but I had to give a talk to some Sankirtan devotees based on a book written by I think a senior devotee as to why you need to take enough sleep before you go out. We had a couple of examples where some very enthusiastic devotees had not taken enough rest and fallen asleep while they were driving. Krishna was very kind and saved them, but we have examples in the movement where people had bad accidents and lost their lives. So it's like a whole thing where that balance up to, just to be able to execute the service. I also find that there is a modus where one goes into, I feel like I'm awake, but so sleepy that I'm in tamagun modus, You're coming and someone says, and you're like, what? What do you want now? Can you not see I'm tired? It's just doing service the whole day. Like, what's this happening? So I find sleeping is a very wonderful thing to help bring one back to the mode of goodness in terms of having enough sleep that is necessary for the body. Surfing the internet and relaxing. These two sometimes come hand in hand because it is, and it has been said that when we are as devotees, we can seem a little bit intense. I don't know if anyone's ever said that to you. We're a little intense because we're like, okay, Jai, Krishna, 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 Krishna. Distribute books, do some service, go, 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 yeah. Maybe if we are with the cows, we can learn a little bit more to be steady. I think it doesn't help if you hurry cows. Probably you have to be very peaceful. And cows are said to be in sattva gun, right? The mode of goodness. So in this way, there's ways to also think. I think it's an interesting question of how we relax in Krishna consciousness. I often have some funny conversations with my husband on this topic because I find as individuals, as people, sometimes we have to have some time to for the mind a little bit to switch off, as Theodore said, in standby modus. For us ladies, when things are going around, normally we need to just do something to clear it out. And often it may be we go for a walk or we do something to get away from that modus so we can again relate to Krishna in this one sense. The next step that we have, I'm going to shut this because I always feel I'm going to stand up on it, is the mind. So I wanted to talk a little bit on mind. How do we get our mind in one with Krishna, with thoughts? There is this beautiful set of prayers, maybe you see it was dusty. Shri Mana Shiksha. So these is translated here as to splendid instructions to the mind. It is a set of wonderful prayers to help in terms of how we can get our mind in relation to Krishna. Should I read one out, maybe? I opened it up as verse 8. I just read the translation. So these are prayers which are sort of praying to the mind. We're praying like helper. So even though I am a cheater, the Lord's mercy can drive away my inherent wicked nature. Give me the glowing nectar of divine love and inspire my heart with the process to worship Sri Gandhavika. Therefore, O mind, with pleading words, you should worship Sri Giridhari here in Vrindavan. O mind, meditate on Krishna, the moon of the Vrindavan forest, as the Lord of my leader, Sri Radhika. Meditate on Sri Radhika as his most dear object of love. Meditate on Sri Lalita as his incomparable friend. Meditate on Sri Vishaka as the foremost guru distributing the teachings of love. And meditate on Radhakund and Govardhan as givers of the sight and love of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. it goes on with these prayers, praying to the mind in these moments to help us. And there was a time a few days ago where my mind was in this loop, let's think of whatever, and why is it this problem, and how comes it's like this, and I'm in the temple, and it shouldn't be like this, and this is, it was sort of this sort of circle, and I was like, hang on a minute, am I in Krishna consciousness? Well, I'm thinking about stuff to do in the temple, I'm physically in the temple, but what's going on here? Do I feel bliss? Not really. The mind is on its on its rampage. And in the moment, it helps now with a little bit of time just to take a deep breath and think, okay, the consciousness has gone off into thoughts. It started with I had a japa workshop, and mostly when your mind spins, it starts with some sort of spiritual thought. It could be, oh wow, that's the cook of Nrsingadev. And then it goes, Hare Krishna, and what's he cooking today? Oh no, it's Ekadashi. I hope he doesn't cook buckwheat. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. I hope it's not like this. I hope it's not. You know, like it goes off into some strange, like, thinking. And most of us, I think, have these innocent sort of distractions that just take us off the loop, right, of where we're going. And the idea there is when we want to think of, let me try to get a little serious or advance in my spiritual life, how can I just bring it back in? At one point is this consciousness, we think, okay, the mind's gone off into a loop, do I want to go there? If it's a reoccurring point and there's a problem, of course one needs to speak to somebody maybe about it. But other times it's easy just to be like, okay, off there, come on, let me just think. I will take the... Oh, sorry, I'm in English modus, thank you that you tell me. Yeah, the first year I was here, everybody told me to speak slower. And now I don't usually have people who tell me to speak slowly, but I can see apart from my husband. Yes, but we have to speak fast with some people. So in this moment where the mind is rambling in its own little world, there are many things we can do which are to spiritualize these thoughts. For me personally, it's take a deep breath. For other people, I find generally probably make it easy. They're like, okay, let me read something. Yeah, they take out a book, Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, another book that's interesting for them, an autobiography of one of the gurus or something, and begin to read. Us ladies, we normally think, I have to speak to someone. Yeah, so we go, oh, Devaki, okay, let me tell you what's going on now. Yeah, and it's important to understand as a dynamic that women sometimes, Mataji, sometimes we need to express it, but at what level should we then stop? And then stop that subject and talk about the next topic. I had a nice Mataji who was in the ashram, who's no longer in the ashram, who I spoke about this topic, but how do we talk on Krishna? She really went into finding what was interesting for her to hear about. And for her it was about the gopis and pastimes, so she would often listen to, I think it's Shriram Swami's recitals when he's reading. There's others who hear they are better to hear. For me personally, I prefer to sit down with a book to read, but something which gives us something to speak about. Sometimes I think we make this mistake also that we dive into some physical activity. It might help us sometimes, but you're doing your physical activity, but the mind is still blah, blah, blah. And mostly for the mind you need some other information or knowledge. Yeah, unless it's really too much and you need to just, sleep or take some time. And from this, I would really recommend that you make your own experiment to see what is interesting for you in Krishna consciousness. It was, for example, for myself that in the first 10 years I found it very hard to read Bhagavad Gita. I was just like, hang on a minute, or especially just to dive in randomly, like it was a bit, okay. But when I studied Bhakti Shastri, then it made it completely different, because it opened up my world and made an understanding of what am I doing in this. In this small way, this again is aligning our vision with Krishna. It's not just sitting. I've sat in many Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam classes and it was just like, not quite sure what they're talking about, not quite sure which point they are at in the book. Maybe it will come to me at some point, but just sort of, and in this way, therefore, it's better just to be open and talk, okay, what's going on here? Okay, to refresh, we're at this point where Daksha has been forgiven and he wants to worship. Huh? And now he's beginning to understand the point. Offer it all to Vishnu, then let me then after offer it to Brahma and Shiva. And then next, what's next? In relationship to our own spiritual lives. What does it mean to offer to everything to the Lord? What does it mean then to also see everyone in terms of an equal vision to the Lord? Yeah, with the Lord. What does it mean to us? What does it mean to us when we try to see that everything we do should be in relationship to Krishna? And mostly I would still say that it is those shadows, those darker sides in our day or our life, which just needs to have some light shining on it that can make a big difference in our time. For some people, for example, when it's stuff internally, Mahatma Prabhu helps. He helped me a lot. Just the different courses, like this idea of when we are going through our daily life and we think, well, what's the point anyway? I can't do it, or it's anyway not good enough. Then maybe you think, okay, maybe I need to have a little bit of a dose of self-esteem. Then to spiritualize or have more of a spiritual input, to do a class like from Mahatma Prabhu, where he uses quotes directly from Srila Prabhupada of understanding why these negative thoughts, in some sense, just pulling us down. We don't want to talk, say, black and white Maya or, or the other, but in one sense, what is helping us to bring us back inside? If you're in your daily lives of service, but too many random things, you're sort of generally feeling unhappy. What is it that can bring one up to think about this? What is it generally that can make us understand that everything that we do should somehow be offered to the Lord? One way or the other, we offer it to the Lord. When I studied Nectar of Devotion and I read that we should offer everything, my fellow students laughed at me and said, well, that's what I did. I went shopping and then I offered everything that I'd bought, like my notebook or my pen or I said, because I'm trying to, they laughed and they sort of said, no, continue also. Sometimes we still do it. You just show the Lord, okay, please accept this. I buy this for your service, please let me use it in your service. There's no point to walk around with shoes which have holes in them. Please let me have these shoes so that I can walk to the temple and be, in the right consciousness, not with wet, cold feet, in this way. What do you think of this point? Our Venurati is smiling at me at least. Any comments or thoughts on this or questions, maybe? Too hard? Shy, I see shy faces. You can always come to me afterwards with some questions. If the husband, do you have any points that you want to say? The default point to this point of oneness, being one.
I was just in the back and I was not
paying attention.
oneness.
Yeah, it says Srila Prabhupada has the devotee who is highly elevated sees a relationship to Krishna in everything. He does not see anything as being independent of Krishna. That is his vision of oneness. That was the point of this exercise in summary, to try to understand what in our daily lives can still be somehow or other. Gehst du schnell immer noch? Oder geht noch? I'm so sorry. Yeah. So what can be put in our daily lives that is that can be related to Krishna?
has to do with oneness?
That everything, we should see the relationship to Krishna in everything, and nothing is independent of Krishna.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your idea of oneness in spiritual life?
I mean, that's is a big topic. I mean, we spoke yesterday already
About Achinti.
something. What is oneness? Well, if we can really apply this philosophy, then everything we can use to be reminded of Krishna, because nothing can exist without first existing in Krishna or being Krishna's desire, because there is everything.
A small accident, don't worry, carry on.
So even if we, Krishna gives this whole list in the Bhagavad Gita about things, what he is, and most of us would think, well, cheating is something what is very, very bad.
Mm-hmm.
But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he is the cheater of the cheaters.
Yes.
So everything what exists must first exist in Krishna, but the mistake what we're gonna do is to think, okay, I am Krishna, so I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I can cheat because Krishna cheats.
Yes.
I don't know.
Wanna say it?
About the oneness thing, I thought it also came to mind that, and I think it was in the second chapter, it starts to mention that as long as we cannot love our faults, we will never be able to love Krishna. Like we have to, because he created us with our faults. So it's also like we have to see in our bads, in our failures, we also have to see Krishna. And I can kind of tie it together to the comment of Ramananda that it all sort of depends on your viewpoint, like how you see everything. Like if you see everything in a bad way, you run danger to. And I'm not saying you've said that. You run danger to go into negative pride. Like, oh no, I was so bad. I failed this and that. And that.
But something in between, right? So we could have a fault. Yeah. So say I can't give up smoking. Okay, can't give up smoking, but I still want to practice somehow or other. So in one moment it's to acknowledge, okay, I'm not perfect, I can't manage it, but I'm trying. Yeah, there's this moment. But on the other level, if we accept the fault completely as it is, there may be no impotence to change. Yeah, so one might also then, you know what I mean? So something in between, a balance up. So we might see a fault. Let me give a better example. I don't have a problem with smoking, luckily. But say I have a problem with anger. Say somebody, oh God, this really infuriates me. If somebody is mean to a small child or something like this happens. So I get angry. And sometimes anger is necessary, but often it takes away where one needs to be. So I acknowledge, okay, sometimes I can be angry, right? I could then, with low self-esteem, said, oh yeah, anyway, what's the point? Anyway, get angry, I'll just yell and shout and scream and whatever. There's no point, let me not try it, may as well just go to the pub, yeah, something like this. Or we might say, okay, I'm angry, or I have this, this disturbance, I'm disturbed often. And we go, okay, Krishna. We can then in that moment say, okay, Krishna loves us full. Okay, so Krishna, please accept me, that I'm often disturbed or that I get angry. And in the next level, would be then to be like, Krishna, help me to understand how I can relate this to my daily life with you. How can it help? It could be that there is something that someone isn't being treated so nicely. So instead of then getting angry at the next person, one just prays enough to be able to express that. That happened with one or two Matajis this week, that something disturbed them, but then they wanted to deal with it in a Krishna conscious way. So there was a prayer, and then we could speak about it in a way which was practical, rather than it being so much of a disturbance for the mind like this. I would say this also brings our vision closer to the one of the Lord. We are in Kali Yuga, and there will always be disturbances, and it's related that this is the age of quarrel, so it means it's easy to fall into an argument with someone. Easier sometimes than to fall into spiritual life. So therefore we have to try harder to work a little bit on the other direction, to spiritualize what we have.
Can I say something to both the smoking and the getting angry about mistreating a child?
Yeah, please.
About smoking, like I had personal experience with that. Because when I first came here, I was still smoking, and for me, it was more a sense of, I think you could say it was greed that I didn't stop smoking.
Greed.
Yeah, the last pack of tobacco I bought. They raised the price there for, like, I think it was 50 cents or something. I was like, okay, I've just paid 50 cents more from my last pack. I'm not gonna throw it away. I'm gonna finish it. But it was like the last week or so, like the smoking, it just wasn't fun. It was suffering. You know,
Suffering.
Yeah,
wow.
I didn't want to smoke, but the greed was still stronger. So in a way, I already defeated the addiction. It was just my own. Is it ego? I think ego. Yeah, ego that was
false ego.
Yeah, false ego that was still stronger. Wait, how do I? Yeah, in that way, like when I started smoking, I smoked because I had a hole to fill, or
a hole to fill
yeah,
inside.
I filled it with smoke.
Yeah.
And later I filled it with Krishna, so there was no room for the smoke anymore.
Oh, very nice example. They say that inside of us we have a world in our heart is full of desires. But when we learn to live our life, that hole is filled with Krishna. If we fill that hole with Krishna, then these desires don't become so pressing. That's a very nice example and relevant. And to anger, you also want to say something.
And anger is like, you could say, like hot smoke.
Anger is hot smoke. Oh yeah, maybe.
Like in the yesterday I read about where anger comes from, because I deal with anger myself, and it comes from identifying with the body. So, but in that sense, you didn't identify with the body. You identified with someone else's body. It was empathy. You empathize with the child. Like, how would you feel to be treated that way? It would feel horrible. And I also, was it Brian? Brian probably, he gave a lecture about, he mentioned in his lecture about when it is, no, it was not Brian. It was Janananda. Where is our place, Janananda Maharaj? Where our place is, when we see faults, are we allowed to criticize? And it all depends on what our position is. In what relationship am I with the person I have issues with? So, in your case, if I may say, first you identified with someone else's body, so you have to cut that out. And if you're not in a good relationship with that person, you have to leave it up to Krishna. It's like your faith is tested. Will Krishna take care of it so that that person at some point understands through karma or some sort of reaction that what he did to his child was wrong? I at least have faith that when the child grows up, he will tell his parents or make him feel that how they were treated was wrong.
Yeah, I gave a random example. I have to say it was not the case, but having worked in child protection, it's there is a limit of where You just have to understand where the emotion is coming from and see if it warrants a necessary action. This is like last week, somebody was dealing with a difficult reaction, and it's very hard to say, okay, this person is completely well when they were treated in a way which they couldn't personally, it was too much for them, when the situation was too much. So in this way there has to be some honesty to say, okay, this is what's wrong, let me change the situation so any of these negative emotions are dealt with. So in this time, unfortunately, in this world, there may be people who are not treated so well, and sometimes there may be that necessarily tinge, hopefully not just anger, but or at least some consciousness to see, okay, let's change this and put this in motion. The bottom line is that we have to surrender it all over to Krishna, but we don't live with our head in a bubble either. One has to be conscious of what's going on in our world. That's why there is always this quote that I like to give. Prabhupada said, in order to be Krishna conscious, we must first be conscious. And that's the point there. In our dealings with others, how are we? Are we being honest? Are we being straightforward? Are we being kind? Are we being compassionate? What is happening? Are we trying to develop these qualities? Let's try in relationship to the Lord. And where other things come up which actually the first years as ashram leader, many of the times it was just dealing with these workings of what's going on internally. But that's why I say we all have this sort of self-responsibility to look into it and to see, okay, let's balance myself up and let me then try to offer it back to the Lord. Like, thank you for showing me this so I can deepen my own prayers and spiritual relationship to you. I thank you that you let me go through these bad experiences. We don't want to talk about teachings of Mother of Kunti, but it goes into this direction. Let's understand the whole side of what our spiritual life leads us to. Thank you very much. It goes, it's just before 9 o'clock, so thank you for attending, and I hope that in the day that follows that you can put as much as you can of your life towards Krishna and be happy in that. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Ladies are always too nervous to say anything. But then I wanted to talk about this topic and then I was like to talk about too.